Hello, this is Robbie Mitchell here from Head in the Cloud Development. Today I'm going to walk you through setting up the NetSuite SDF plugin in WebStorm running on Linux, and then we're going to code a few SuiteScripts together in TypeScript. For the record, this video is being recorded in August 2025 on NetSuite version 2025.1. So the specific goals of this video are to walk you through setting up an SDF project in WebStorm on Linux, to demonstrate using TypeScript in an SDF project. In this video, we'll code and deploy 3 different SuiteScripts together. In our example scenario, I'm going to show you how to implement multiple file uploader fields on an online support case form. And just to say, if you are already all set up with WebStorm and SDF, then you can skip the next few minutes and just go ahead to the point where I actually get into NetSuite itself. This video is intended for NetSuite developers and administrators. You should have the administrator role in NetSuite to do everything I cover here. You should at least be familiar with JavaScript and basic web technologies to keep up here, and I assume that you have at least minimal familiarity with the SuiteScript version 2 API. So let's get started. First, we're going to download and install a couple of pieces of software. The IDE we'll be using is WebStorm by JetBrains. You can go to this URL, or usually I'll just Google it to find out how to install it. So here's the download page, and I'm super happy that they've finally added a Linux ARM64 version of their Toolbox app, because it makes installing it on Linux so much easier. So that's what I'm going to download here. So to start the Toolbox app, we go into the folder and just double-click this JetBrains Toolbox icon. And I can scroll down to WebStorm, and I'm just going to click Install. So while that's running, the second thing we need to get is Node.js. And if we just go to nodejs.org, we can click this Get Node.js button. And so it detects that I'm on Linux, which is nice. I do recommend downloading whatever the current long-term support version is. Right now it's version 22. And if you're on Mac or Windows, you should get a button to just download that. But since I'm on Linux, I can just copy this group of commands to my clipboard. One thing I'll mention, some flavors of Linux don't actually come with this curl program, so you might need to install that first if you don't already have it. But I'm on Fedora, and I know it does come with it, so I'm going to start up my terminal and see if I can just paste in this group of commands. Let's press Enter. Okay, and then to test I can just do node-v, and I get 22.18.0, so that worked. So WebStorm is still downloading, but it's not far from done. So rather than starting from scratch, I'm going to download the set of files that I've prepared for this project from GitHub here. Let's see if my copy and paste works. Yeah. And you can do this too. This repository is public. So if we just click this code button, I can click download zip and just unzip that. So this is the folder we're going to open up in WebStorm in just a second here. But while that's finishing, the next thing we're going to need to do is install the NetSuite SDF plugin in WebStorm. And the easiest way to figure out how to do that is to log into NetSuite. So let's go ahead and do that. So once we get into NetSuite, if we go to Help, and here just type in Adding Suite Cloud IDE Plug into WebStorm. Click on the first link. And what we need is this plugin repository. So let's copy this. We can go ahead and start up WebStorm. And just to talk about licensing, WebStorm is not free. If you want something free, you can use VS Code, and I have other videos for that. But for WebStorm, I think if you download one of the beta versions, then you can use it for free. Otherwise, you need a license, or for this, I'm just going to do a free 30-day trial. I'm not sure what this is, but I'm just going to go ahead and disable input methods. Now, since I've got the NetSuite SDF plugin repository copied, I'm going to go to, on my plugins tab, I'm going to go to Manage Plugin Repositories, add one, and paste in this URL that I've got. And from there, on the marketplace, if I just type in SuiteCloud, we see the SuiteCloud IDE plugin for WebStorm, and that's what we need to install. So that should only take a sec. After you install it, you will need to restart WebStorm, so I'm just going to do that here. And from there, we should be able to open our project that we downloaded. Alternatively, if you wanted to start from scratch, you would go to New Project and select a NetSuite account customization project. And if you are starting from scratch, you will just need to create some of these files manually. But if you've downloaded it like I have, let's take a look at what we have here. We'll look at package.json first. When we're using Node.js, a package.json file tells the Node package manager which packages and versions need to be installed. So this is how we tell it to load our HITC NetSuite types module. Once you have this in place, go ahead and run this npm install command to install these modules. Next, we'll look at tsconfig.json. This controls how the TypeScript files are handled. Here you'll see that we're compiling to ES 2021, and you'll see the directory that we're compiling our JavaScript files into. All right, so the next step is to authenticate NetSuite to connect this project to our account. So we can do that by right-clicking here, and going to NetSuite, NetSuite Settings, and then if we expand this and go to Account Management, hopefully you won't see this error. After doing some research, this error is happening because I'm on a virtual machine, and for some reason it hasn't initialized the keychain correctly in Linux, or something like that. If you do get this problem, here's the solution I found. If we run this command, it should fix it. Let's see if I can paste this. Yeah. Okay, and then we have to log out and log back in. So let's close WebStorm down and then log out. Oh, I should have put a dock icon for WebStorm. That's annoying. But I can just find it again by typing in jet. I'll make a dock icon this time. And let's start up WebStorm again. We'll see if our problem is fixed now. Part of the fun of these videos is seeing solutions to these common problems. That won't be the last problem we encounter, I assure you. So let's try this again. Go to our NetSuite settings. Okay, great. That's looking much better. So before I click the plus icon, I like to be signed into NetSuite already to be sure I'm in the right account. Okay, cool. So I'm still signed in. So now if I click this plus icon, say browser-based authentication, my browser should pop up and just confirm access. And there we go. And while we're here, you can set the account you just added as your default account. Mine's already set. And click OK. Okay, so now our compiler is all set up and we can get into actually developing. First, let's talk about our goal just for a minute. What are we going to accomplish today? In our scenario, we have an online support case form that enables our customers to log support cases with us without being logged into NetSuite. Let me show you. If we go to Setup, Support, Online Case Forms, I'm going to use the online case form with files. I'm going to use the external link. So it's nothing pretty, but just kind of base functionality here. This is a support case form that somebody could fill out to file a case with us and describe a problem they have. And crucially for us, when someone files a support case, we're going to require them to include a few different files with it. Now normally in NetSuite with these online forms, it's really easy to get one file from the user. But today I'm going to show you how to implement multiple file fields on this form. For example, maybe you're a product company and maybe you want users to give you a photo of the problem, a photo of the serial number, and a PDF of their store receipt or invoice, for example. So let me show you what an example of a case will look like when it's submitted. So this is a support case I did last week to test. And as you can see, one of the files gets attached here to the built-in NetSuite files sublist. And you could very easily attach the other two files to the sublist as well. But in our scenario, we wanted to have two different file fields here on the case record so that we could correctly categorize what these files are. Also notice here that I've added two fields for the file IDs. In other words, for each additional file we need, we have added two custom fields. I'll show you why these are needed when we get into the scripts. Does this sound like fun? Okay, let's get into it. So first I'm going to show you what the HTML looks like for the online form. Again, it's very simple. We do have a few hidden fields down here at the bottom, including the file ID fields. Also, you'll notice three file inputs here. The first one is the built-in NL file field from NetSuite, and the second two are standard HTML file inputs. And for the SuiteScripts, I've given you three shell files here to start with. In the case client script, we're going to link the file input fields on the page to our SuiteLit. The SuiteLit is going to take the files submitted by the online form user and create files in the NetSuite file cabinet. And then in the user event script, we're going to set those IDs into the actual file fields. We have to do it this slightly roundabout way because we can't include the actual file fields on the online form. Okay, so let's start with our SuiteLit. It's actually going to be pretty short and sweet. First, let's think about the inputs here. What is our user going to pass to this SuiteLit? Well, they're going to send three things: file contents, a file name, and a file type. Let's code these in. We can also include an optional folder parameter here, but we're actually going to specify a default value in case you don't want to expose that in your client script. So our default value is -10, and we'll comment here that that's the attachments received folder. So in any NetSuite script, it's important to have good logging. So let's log what we've received here so far. Oops. Now let's use an if condition to make sure that the request type is a post and that we do indeed have file content and a file name. And we're going to include just a simple little file type mapping to convert a 3-letter string into a NetSuite file type. And if you're working with different files, you'll see it's easy to expand this. Oh, I need the file module, don't I? And just in case no file type was found, we'll fall back to just a plain text file. Now we're going to create and save our file, and we'll put this in a try-catch in case it fails. And of course, let's log when we do create a file. One common reason it might fail is if the file is too large. NetSuite seems to struggle with files larger than 10 megabytes. Finally, we'll write out the file ID that we generated. Oops. Okay, so let's go ahead and deploy and upload this. So first we need to compile our code by just running tsc in the terminal. Oh, and apparently I didn't have TypeScript installed, but the operating system is offering it to me. I'm going to say yes. Yep, and here's my compiled code, so that's great. And to deploy, I'm just going to use right-click and deploy. Click OK on the production warning. Okay, that deployed. Let's take a quick look in NetSuite. If we go to Customization, Scripting, Scripts, we can filter to Suitelets. This is the Upload File Suitelet. Let's go to the deployment. Take a look at the deployment here. We're going to need this URL, so I'm going to go ahead and copy it. So normally I'd be saying, let's test this, but it might actually be kind of hard to test it on our own. It'll be easier once we have our client script in place. So let's set that up now. So in our client script, basically what we're going to do is use jQuery to add a field change handler to the file input fields. We'll start with the screenshot file input first. So we're going to use the standard browser file reader functionality here to read the file. And in a second, I'm going to copy and paste this simple little get file type function that basically tries to figure out common file types based on the file selected. Now, if you've never seen this type of stuff before with the file reader, it might look a little scary, but don't worry if every little bit of it doesn't make total sense to you. But if you are interested, certainly feel free to read more about it online. There's tons of documentation on how we do this sort of thing. Basically, once we have the raw file content, we need to convert it to base 64 and get ready to pass it to our Suitelet. This B2A function is another built-in browser function. Now let's use a console log to say when we're sending it to the Suitelet. With a timestamp, of course. So one really annoying thing is that we have to have our Suitelet URL hard-coded here. You might be able to find a more intelligent way of embedding it in the page or something, but this simple method should work fine 99% of the time. And once we have that, we can use jQuery to post the file data to our Suitelet. We'll use a timestamp to make the file name unique. The response will come back as a string. When it comes back, we'll log that it did. With another timestamp. And the response we get back is the file ID, so we can set that into our file ID field itself. And to prevent the user from submitting the page while the file is still saving, let's disable the Submit button and then re-enable it when the Suitelet is finished. And just beneath our onload handler, we need to actually trigger the file reader. Now, we need to actually do this exact same thing for two fields. So let's move this big chunk of code into an add file upload handler function, and then we'll simply call it twice. And as promised, let me copy and paste in my getFileType function. You'll find it in the done version of the file here. Now for the record, we need the record module. And then to call this function, we just say add file upload handler, context.currentRecord, and we'll actually cut and paste these values. And we'll change this to rec. So the file ID becomes file ID field. And this ID element becomes image input ID. Doesn't have to be an image, but that's just what we call it here. Okay, so let's copy this, call it again, and now instead of the screenshot, the other file we have is the execution logs file ID, and that's in just a logs field. Okay, let's upload this. So when we just need to upload a single file, a nice shortcut is that you can just right-click on the file itself, go to NetSuite, and upload file to account. It'll just use whatever your default account is set to in the project. Okay, now what we need to do is set this script to run on our online support case form. So if we edit the support case form, go to the Custom Code tab, I'm sure there must be an easier way to do this, but if we go to list here, this search doesn't work. So I know a simple trick to get around this, and if you know another way, then please comment on the video here. But what we're going to do is just use the browser console here. First, we just need to find our script file, so case online client. Just open that in another tab, and we just need the file ID here. And then what we do is we can look at this and see this field is the script file field, so we can use good old SuiteScript 1, set field value, script file, paste in, oh, my browser doesn't want me to paste anything. Let's just look at it, 72621. And that does it. Again, I'm sure there must be another way, but this is how I do it. So let's try it now. If I go back here and just refresh. Now when I'm testing, it's worth thinking about your company duplicate detection rules. I think mine are set to use the email domain. So if I use anything at toffee.com, it'll connect to this existing company, which is a good test here. Test at toffee.com, test 1. It's broken. So I'm going to attach a few files here. Okay, I just took a few screenshots to use as my files, so let's do that. And if you noticed, you saw my submit button disable for a sec and then re-enable. I'm not going to submit it yet because we haven't done our user event script, but we just want to see if that triggered the Suitelet correctly. So if we look back on our execution logs of our script deployment, we can refresh it, but we should see some logs saying that 2 files were received and it should have created 2 files in the file cabinet. So that looks good. So now it's time for our user event script. So our user event is the shortest and simplest of the 3 scripts. All we need to do here is read the file IDs and set them into the actual file fields, like this. But is it really this easy? Well, we'll see in just a minute. Let's add a log and then we'll upload and test. Always good to have logging. And one thing that it makes logging even better is if you include the runtime module, then you can log what execution context things are happening in. Especially helpful when things don't work the way you think they should. Okay, let's compile this. Upload this file. And let's check and see if I've deployed this user event script. So I'm just undeploying my finished version of the script so we can make sure that the development version is the one that we're running here. Okay, yep, this is deployed. So now I've already got everything filled in here, so if I go ahead and submit this, we got an error. Well, that's annoying. So it says the file is invalid. Did our user event script run? Yes, it did. So our user event tried to do what it was doing, but we got an error, and it's not a script error because it doesn't show up in our logs. So why is that? To be honest, I'm not totally sure. I swear I've done this exact thing in real NetSuite accounts and it works fine. It's not the end of the world though. There are a couple of things we can try. If you look at the done version of this user event script, I included some commented out code. This is where I tried an after submit using record.submit fields to submit the file IDs to the record. And just to mention, updating the record and after submit really is not an ideal thing to be doing here, but it is a common workaround that you can use whenever you have issues like this in before submit. This probably won't be the last time you have to use this trick. And I should note, don't worry about getting into any sort of user event endless loop here. In NetSuite, user event scripts don't chain. So in other words, nothing I do here in a user event script will trigger any other user event script. But after spending quite a while dealing with this error, I found that it actually seems to be related to the file cabinet folder that we're saving the images to. Something about these built-in folders seems to be restricted in this online form user context. So let's look at the file cabinet for just a sec. What we want to try is, instead of using this built-in attachments received folder, let's use a folder that I've created called case files. And you can create any kind of folder you want here. But basically, we just need to replace this -10 with this folder ID. Maybe update our comment here. Then we'll run tsc and try this. I'm going to go back, I'm just going to refresh the page, and we'll try this again. I'm going to select my 3 files again. And click Submit. Okay, yeah, that works great. Let's just take a quick look at our new case. If I go to the list of support cases, here it is, case 212. And if we look at our files, here they are. Okay, that all works great. And that's all for now. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Feel free to get in touch if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you for watching. We'll see you at SuiteWorld.